I like all the bright colors. I like the bright colors. Welcome everybody. Welcome to the Black Butterfly Podcast. My name is Amaru.
Hi guys, welcome to the show. I am Candace and welcome to the Black Butterfly Podcast. You are now in the cocoon room.
And we have a special guest here tonight. She is a former Word alum, obviously the Red House. That's what we like to call it. Class of '98, boo. But we'll let you slide tonight. She's also an entrepreneur who has a bunch of services that she likes to provide under her Life Success business. And my sister, from the area of Etna, Indiana, Jacqueline Parker. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So, before we get started, before I always try to open up the show with opening thoughts. And so, before we get started on our show, do you have any opening thoughts, Candace and Jacqueline?
I actually do not have any opening thoughts at the moment.
And how about you?
Well, I guess I can just say, just making sure for us as a community that we don't count ourselves out because we don't know something. And so we have resources for us to be able to learn and get educated on things that we need to know in life. So just making sure we don't count ourselves out before we even just get an opportunity to even learn something.
I agree. You perish from lack of knowledge. Ain't that a Bible scripture? Perish from lack of knowledge. I ain't no Bible thumper like that, but I'm just trying to back in the day when I used to go to church like that. You know what I'm talking about? I'm just trying to pull my recollection.
That is correct. We perish from a lack of knowledge. Yes.
So with that being said, I like to pivot to the word. Well, which one? I always forget which one you do first. Do we do the word or the scripture before?
We do the scripture first.
Okay, so we're going to do the scripture of the day, and I'll let Candace take it from here.
Okay, we have Romans 5, 3 through 5. We rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope, and hope does not put to shame because God's...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Love has been produced into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. I'm gonna need you to pay attention.
No, go ahead. No, because I was actually doing some production stuff. But what does that mean to you?
I picked the scripture just because today's topic will talk about wills and trust, and then oftentimes people do not invest in their futures or in their family, or they don't create generational wealth just because they don't think they can do it. So we do suffer. And so if we hope to change things, we must be educated and we must learn new information. And once we have the tools, be able to put those things in place. And so that's why I chose that scripture.
Okay, so as before we get this conversation started, I like the preference, right? So I've been knowing this young lady for a long time. So before I had facial hair, I remember when I first bought my vehicle, we got my driver's license. We just in competition of each other. She's also in my wedding, so I love her dearly. And so she's going to provide some knowledge for us tonight from the services that she provides. But before we do that, I will, and so get some backtrack, some context. So my Uncle Tony passed away a couple weeks ago. This is probably about a couple months ago now. And so his son, which is my cousin TJ, he was like, hey, cuz, he tagged me on the page. He was like, can we have a conversation about establishing a will, right? And so this is why I think this conversation needs to be had, because our generation, whether we like to admit it or not, we're in our 40s, right? And so we have aging parents. And so this is some of the things I think that are critical to establishing wealth or leaving a legacy, right? And just being, taking care of things that need to be taken care of when you have an aging parent. And so I would like to share this before we get started. And so give me 1 second, y'all. I should have had this already up, but no worries. We'll work with it. Um, and I think this is actually key because this is going to drive the conversation this here. And so I think I showed this to you guys yesterday. And so I think this is pretty interesting. And so when you see stuff, it's funny when you see stuff on social media,
trustee,
I
so you
always like to
maintain
have
control over the
context.
assets.
And so I like to play
Then
that
have
real
the
quick.
trust purchase life insurance on all the members of the family. Just make sure it's a policy that can give you strong cash value. Then you can borrow from the trust based on the need for the family. Just make sure the trust is the beneficiary of these life insurance policies so that when someone passes away, the trust can be fully replenished. That keeps the trust from ever being depleted. And here's a visual of what the actual cycle looks like. And this never-ending process can completely change your family's dynamic. Here's how you set up a family bank that everyone can benefit from. First, you're going to open up a trust. Make sure to appoint yourself as a trustee so you maintain complete control over the assets. Then have the trust purchase life insurance on all the members of the family. Just make sure it's a policy that can give you strong cash value. Then you can borrow from the trust based on the need for the family. Just make sure the trust is the beneficiary of these life insurance policies so that when someone passes away, the trust can be fully replenished. That keeps the trust from ever being depleted. And here's a visual of what the actual cycle looks like. And this never-ending process can completely change your family's dynamic.
Okay, so we got the idea, right? So with that being said, I'd like to introduce our friend. And so she's going to talk about this probably a little later, but want her to introduce herself and talk about life success and what that means. How did she get started on her road to entrepreneurship and provide these services for our community?
All right. So, did you want to mention about the podcast?
You go ahead and
Go ahead.
talk about your story, and then we'll update them as we move along through the show.
Okay. All right. So, I guess to kind of like preface like how things got started. So, in 2006. I started Life Success. And what it stands for is living your faith every day brings forth success in every area of your life. And so growing up, we were limited on things that we knew. We were limited on like the tools and the resources and being exposed to different things. And so going to school, going to college, allow me to be able to see different things and different opportunities. I always thought that the way you make income was to work a job for 40 plus years and then you retire off of this money. Well, times have changed. And so at the age of 17, I learned about Robert Kiyosaki and learned about the cash flow quadrant. And I learned about there were more outside of being just an employee, that you can be self-employed, you can be a business owner, and you can be an investor. And so my goal was I didn't want to work for someone for the rest of my life. My goal originally is I wanted to retire by the time I turned 30. That didn't happen, but I did retire by the time I turned 36. I fired corporate America. And so Life Success was birthed because I feel like a lot of times we don't know a lot of different things. And so I wanted to be able to provide resources and options and education for people to be able to know, like, you can be financially free, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, socially, and mentally. And so I wanted to have resources to be able to help people in every area of life, not just the money part, but if your mind isn't right, what's the point of you having your money? You have to be mentally, you can't give somebody that's a drug addict $1 million and think that they're going to use that money wisely. They're just going to end up killing themselves because they're going to overdose using that money. And so your mindset has to be right, to be able to manage those things. And a lot of times we don't have certain things in place. And so my scripture that's on the information I had posted to you, which we had talked about in the beginning, you say that you have faith, but when you're presented with a situation, you immediately count it out as too hard before you even try. And so I see people that, they have a situation, and when you tell them this is the way you need to fix it, they automatically are like, oh, that's too hard. But it really isn't. It's just, you just have to put the steps into action, and it doesn't have to be hard. You're just making it hard because you just don't want to do it. And so the other scripture that is on my list of things that I do is the one that Candace had mentioned in the beginning, Hosea 4:6. We are destroyed due to the lack of knowledge. So us saying that I didn't know is not going to help you or anyone. It is up to us to make sure that we're educated. And so my goal is for you to be educated, empower you, for you to be able to learn these things. And you see GoFundMes all the time. People don't get their insurance. They don't protect themselves. And so 2006, I formulated Life Success. In 2016, I fired corporate America. And that's when I went full-time business. And so I do have contracts and partnerships to be able to provide insurance solutions, financial solutions, people to be able to have resources. So if you need, your life insurance and things like that. And so my goal is generational wealth, creating generational wealth. But you can still create generational wealth. But if you don't have, your will and your trust and things like that in place, what's the purpose? So to kind of like fast forward to 2021, the pandemic happened. And the reason why there are so many like resources solutions that I have that I make available is because the pandemic happened. And so there was a lot of unknown for a lot of people. Because I mainly work with businesses and business owners. And so when things shut down and companies shut down, it was like, oh, okay, well, we on lockdown, we can't go anywhere. So what can I do, from the house? What other additional resources can I add? People still need their health insurance. People still need their things. So I want to make sure I still had solutions. But a lot of people who had work life insurance, they thought that if they left their job or wasn't working, that their life insurance was going to still stand. And you're without insurance. So making sure you don't just have work life insurance, that you have life insurance outside of that. And then just to kind of give you, what we have now in 2021, I ended up connecting with a group of people that was on the same like-minded page as I was. And so we partnered up, and our community is called Legends Together. We have over 1,100 people within our community. And so Legends Together, we are on the same path of financial literacy, financial education, creating generational wealth, but not also just having that wealth, but let's also protect our wealth, protect what we're building. And so that's where the leadership come into play, is because we have leadership, we have attorneys, things that happen around this world, we're being treated injustice, not being treated fairly. So having an attorney on hand I can call 24/7 is comforting to me. At the fingertips, I can reach out to an attorney. But not only that is that will, that living will, that trust, that healthcare power of attorney, that financial power of attorney, those things are critical to have. And so if you don't have these things in place, you do realize like the government does have like a will for you. Like they're going to say, this is what's going to happen, because you did not have this already in place. And so this is where we are today.
Well, I'm glad that you explained all that, because we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of Legal Shield and some of the things to provide. And so, especially with attorneys, right? Because I know a lot of us, we do have situations where we need an attorney, right? Whether it be some child support issues, right? Or it be some legal issues where, traffic stops. I know all about that. The legal issues, right? We talked about that yesterday. Had a laugh. But traffic stops. Issues with parking tickets. You run into bad police officers, right? Because we do have bad ones, right? And so you want to make sure that you're protecting yourself with an attorney. Knowing the law and knowing what things that are in place for you. When you have that attorney. So can you talk about specifically what Legal Shield provides and the fees and all that stuff behind it?
So Legal Shield provides the legal services. We also do identity protection as well, because we got the scammers out there. They are out there trying to get you. So we also got the identity protection as well. But the legal services immediately is $30 a month. Covers you, spouse, children under 26 in your household for $1 a day. And so it gives you access and peace of mind. It's like a preventative service to have for just in case. Just like you have car insurance. You can't just get into a wreck and then say, let me go get some car insurance real quick. It's too late at that point. So it's basically having the services in place for just in case something happens. You have an attorney at your fingertips. And then it's good, your family is covered as well with the services. And you have 24-hour access. So even if you got pulled over, you can tap the button, call your attorney while you are pulled over on the side of the road, just to kind of like help protect yourself. And you got your attorney right there in your hands to kind of help you feel at least somewhat of it at ease when a situation happens. But the good thing about the plan, yes, you have your attorney, but once you get your services, you automatically can create your will within 24 to 48 hours. You can connect with attorney. Yes.
I have a quick question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So Legal Shield, is this civil or is it criminal or both?
So it's both. Both services. If it's something where you've committed the crime, you get discounts off of your legal services. So it would not be that they're going to have the attorney there and you're not going to pay any additional court fees or any fees for that attorney. You get discounts off of legal services. So you get 25% off of your legal services. Yeah.
So that was my question. So, because I know oftentimes people are going to say, okay, is it just civil or is it criminal as well? So even if you pay that monthly subscription, if it is something that arises that is a criminal case, they are available to you. You just have to actually pay their retainer fee and the rate that it would cost normally for the court costs. Is that correct?
So typically, since you already have Legal Shield, there's typically not your retainer fee that you will be paying. You just be paying your 25%.
Okay.
And so my question is, so you said separate from court fees. So explain that process.
What, the court fees?
Yeah. Well, so go ahead.
So your attorney will basically kind of manage all of that for you. I've used, like I said, I had Legal Shield like back in 2004 is when I first started with it, just because I was up and down the road and wanted to make sure that I had coverage. I've used it for different things, and some things may not even warrant where you may have to go to court. The attorney can possibly write a letter on your behalf, and they may like turn, the thing around for you with just a letter being written. I've had situations where I've had to have them write a letter to somebody, and they they turn, changed their tune, and everything went in my favor just from that letter being sent out from the attorney. So depending on the situation, they kind of handle that. You talk to an attorney and they will kind of like walk you through all those steps, whether it may be some court fees and things like that.
Okay, cool. My question is, so obviously we're talking about Legal Shield, so I wanted to get into the wills and the trust, right? Because I kind of know, but it's different when people think they know. I worked at the bank, and so what would happen a lot of times when people would come into the bank, they would try to retrieve the assets, and when they try to retrieve the assets of their deceased loved one, they couldn't retrieve them because, for one, they wasn't the POD, payable on death, or they didn't have a will or a trust. They wasn't in those documents. And so, can you explain the difference between wills and trusts, and then the importance of them? So I'll put them up on the screen too.
Yes. So, um, a will versus a trust. So the trust is more of like how you want the finances to be handled. And so with the trust, you create the trust, and you can assign, like, so like if you have a life insurance policy, for example, you can assign that policy to the trust. So the money upon death or the life event happening, it will go into that trust. And however way you have that trust set up, then that is how things are going to be done accordingly. And then you would name an executor of the trust, and that executor is the one that's going to be handling your wishes based on how you want things done. If you have a trust in place, then you kind of avoid like some of those things that get tied up in court because it's already handled through the trust. Now, if you have a will only allows you to. There's certain things a will allow you to do. The will say, okay, this is who I want as my executor over my estate. And then you have that in writing as your will. But like certain things, like if you have children and you pass away and they're minors, like you would name that information in your will on who's going to be handling that. But then your trust, you can have the money going into the trust, and then the executors are controlling over how the money is distributed. If you want them to wait till a certain age, they have to wait until they turn 21, or they need to wait until they turn 26 before they get this certain amount of money. So it's kind of more of your will is kind of like laying out certain things, but then your trust is more like that financial piece of the executor handling that and where the money flows through. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And so obviously, I want to get to go. Candace, do you have a question?
I do. So you talk about the will. The will is the information that says who gets what, basically, and then the trust is how it's dispersed. The question is, when you are writing the will, I know that oftentimes a lot of the money does come from when the person passes on from the insurance companies. Do you guys kind of work with the insurance company? How does that work?
So if you have a life, if you have a policy, for example, let's say it's life insurance, you automatically assign a beneficiary, whether it's the estate, the trust, or a person. So if you assign a person to it, then you can't change that. If that money will go to that person. If you don't have a person assigned to it, it's going to go to the estate. Or if you have a trust, it's going to go to that trust. So once the money is like, so for example, like I had a policyholder who passed away, sudden cardiac arrest. They didn't have life insurance with me, but they had a critical care plan with me, and it paid out a benefit because they passed away. And so they had like $15,000 that was paid out. Well, there was no beneficiary set for that money. So the money was distributed to the estate. And so if there's the executor of the state, then that executor has the information from the trust, like this is where that money is supposed to do. If there's no will, no trust, it just goes to the estate, and then the money is distributed to the state. And then they're fighting over it. You got to go to court, and then the court and the government will say how that needs to be handled. So it's best to have these things written down in place, so that just avoids the drama, it avoids the argument. It just makes things easier when someone passes away if you just have everything laid out.
I got a question. So is there a dollar limit, like a minimum, for you to have a trust or a will? Or it could just be anything on paper about any assets that you may have. Like, let's say if I have a family member, or let's say my mother she don't have any bank accounts, right? Anything in her bank, like nothing real major, like nothing over 10,000. But let's say she has like just a lot of like furniture and just tangible things like that. No properties or anything like that. Could that be in a will or a trust?
Yeah, even the tangible things you want to, if it's important to you,
Yeah.
and you don't want any issues, you want to put that information on where you want it to go. Like I had an aunt that passed away, and she had a house. Well, there was no directives on what was to happen with the house, and then some family members wanted to keep the house, some didn't want to keep the house, and so there was that situation. So, and then all of the contents thereof, some people wanted some memorable, things from out of that. Well, because without a will in place, it's whoever, in the house, they can make whatever decision they want to make, and you just stuck with trying to, being upset or being mad at that person. So it's best to just kind of avoid that. If it's something that is of value, of sentiment, even if you have Bitcoin, if you have Cash App, money in that, you want to delegate and say, and have, make sure people are aware that I have money in these places, so that way the money is not just out there lost, unclaimed.
When it's unclaimed, though, you talk about estate. What about the state that you're living in? So, because I know a lot of times when we would have situations at the bank, the manager would always tell us, if they not beneficiaries or PODs or anything like that, it'd be in probate court. And so when you go to probate, I'm assuming, my question would be, what's the turnaround as far as retrieving the assets? Do you know what the turnaround would be? I know it's
you can be caught up in court for 1 year, 2 years, or even longer, depending on the amount of stuff. You can be stuck in probate for a while. And so it's just best to have the trust in place, have a will in place, have your executor sign, and what your desires are. Even if, because the story I heard today was there was a lady, she had her legal shield for some years, but she never did her will. But then an event happened, and thankfully she was able to still talk and assign someone really fast, like a power of attorney, just in case, and she had minor kids. But it was just the fact that she was able to talk. She had a stroke or a heart attack or something like that. You may not always survive that, and at that point, if you are no longer able to talk or speak, it's too late to make those put those things in place. But she was able to make a phone call, and at that point, she was like, "Oh my gosh, like I should have been done this a long time ago. I should have had a will in place where my kids are going to go, what's going to happen." And so this is somebody who already had the service, but just never took the time to go in and prepare her things. But that event gave her a wake-up call to be like, oh my gosh, like I should have been done this, and this is like something that is very critical to make sure we are taken care of. And so now she's like, oh, I need to really like put my plan to use and make sure that they're telling people about the services, to make sure that, like, don't find yourself stuck in a situation or leave your family members or your loved ones in a situation where they're stuck now in court, in probate. The kids are not, don't have, they're not going to where you really want them to go. So it's really important to have these things laid out. So even when my cousin passed away, she had 3 minor boys and a husband. And so the boys ended up being with the grandma for a while, and then the grandma passed away, and then the boys end up being split up. There was no will, no directive, so the 3 boys got split up into different families' homes. And then it's unfortunate. So just having those things in place, so that way, if you really want certain people to handle or take care of your kids, or you want to have those things in place. And even like with people who are not married but live together, that's another situation. You're living together. The owner of the house passes away, but you're not the owner. You're not the spouse. Now you got to move out. So, because there was no will and you're not married. And so the government says, well, you're not entitled to anything. You might think you're entitled because you've been with that person for a long time, but there was nothing in writing. So now you're homeless. So
I got it. Yes, I was just getting ready to ask you that. So, we have a lot of people in our culture that will live together. They will date for years and years and years, and they will start to purchase things together. Even though they purchase things together, sometimes only one person name may be on the contract, and if the other person suddenly expires, because as we see right now, people are just passing away for no rhyme or reason. You see them today and they have passed away on the very next day. What does it look like if you are not legally married and you have purchased all of these things together and your name is not on like the home or the vehicle or even the business?
Right. And so now, if there was nothing in writing, now you're trying to go to court, and depending on what the laws are in that state, you could find yourself with nothing.
Okay, I have one more question for you. I got more questions, but this one. Okay, so there are people who are dating individuals that have been like legally separated for maybe 10 years. However, they never got a divorce. So if someone does pass away and the other mate, the ex is not married, they're still married and they have, they've been living with this person for a long time. Is the spouse still entitled to that person's things if they never was legally divorced, even if it's been over 10 years?
So it does depend on the state that they live in and what those laws are in that state. But it could be a possibility that the spouse could have some entitlement, but it's not always 100% that is the truth. That because you're a spouse that you have the rights to everything. It definitely needs to be in writing who gets what, because I've seen that situation where the man passed away and was still married to the spouse in another city. And
say that again. Oh wait, he had two wives?
You heard her correctly.
No, he had a girlfriend.
Okay.
He had a spouse, and they had been separated for about good 10 years, but they were still married. Okay. And so, upon death, there was nothing in writing, and so that money went to the estate, which the girlfriend of 10 plus years did not get any of that money.
And so I don't know if you heard. I don't know if you heard of Maru or not. He basically said, before I asked you the question, the benefits of being married is that when you have that foundation and you purchase things together, if someone in the marriage passes away, whether it's the wife or the husband, you have entitlement to those funds if the trust is in place, if the will is in place.
Yes, if those things are in place, yes. Because even if you are the spouse, that does not guarantee that you are still entitled if there's nothing in writing or if your name is not on anything. And so the will and trust is still important to have, because there still is no guarantee depending on what state you're in.
I have a coworker, and it's funny, coworker's older. She's like 64. And so her husband passed away last year. And so she talks about this all the time. It's so funny. She said, and this is the benefit of having the will and insurance and stuff. She said that her husband when he passed away, right before he passed away, he had the daughter was very negligent in her actions, right? He had, he was paying her bills and stuff. He was a co-signer on some of the things that she had. And so because she kept messing up, he took her off the will for 3 weeks before he passed. And so when they went to the, when the money, obviously the money's got dispersed or whatever, obviously his wife, who has no kids and was left the inheritance from her own mother, this my coworker, she was like, yeah, I got the money. And the daughter's asking me like, well, aren't you going to give me some of the money? She's like, no, because it's a reason why he took your butt off the wheel 3 weeks before it passed. He told you he was going to do that. And she said it caused a little rift. She said, but what she ended up doing, she paid off the vehicle that she had trouble paying, and then she said some other stuff happened with the boyfriend, the girl's boyfriend wrecked the vehicle and all that. And she said, no, I'm not giving her no money. She said, because that was her father's wishes. And it speaks to some of the things that you're talking about, like, that's the benefit of being married. And it's a cold game, right? Because, you are the spouse, right? And then you pick your beneficiaries based on the dependents, right? So if you are a daughter or a son, and it would be a benefit of you to treat your parents well in their last days. And like, let's say if you don't even like them, especially if they have some money. I'm just saying, right? I ain't being bad. I'm just saying. And because stuff like this happens, and then it causes rift, and then obviously now she doesn't have any funds, and now she's still struggling to be at or below the poverty line. You know what I'm saying? And like $200,000. You think you can use $200,000? I know I could.
Yeah. So the lady that his wife was not her mother. Is that what you're saying?
Say that again.
His wife was not the mother of the child.
No.
Okay.
No. And so and we talk about she's 64, and so I love her. She's one of my favorite coworkers. She's funny as heck, but then she talks about this all the time, and so that's why I'm like, oh yeah, we need to talk about this because we all have aging parents, right? And so some have more than others, right? But and she said one of the things that bothered him was that when he was getting older, when her husband's parents passed, the other siblings didn't want to take care of the mother and the father, but then had their hand out when they passed. And he said he did the same thing they did to them. The parents cut them out the will and put him as the beneficiary because they wasn't doing what they were supposed to do as far as taking care of the parents. And so, like, you just do the right thing. You know what I'm saying? Even in distress, do the right thing. Like, I'm not saying you do it just because of the money, right? But I'm just saying, like, and then also on top of that, that money helps pay the bills. But one thing I like to share this too. She said that when they were coming after the bills that he had left behind, she purposely did not change her last name to his last name because she knew that they was going to use that when he did pay. She said he had a bad heart and everything. And so what ended up happening, the bill collectors were calling the house. She said she was like, they were like, is this Mrs. Sanders? And she's like, no, I'm his sister. And so because she knew, because if she would have gave them the last name that she was his wife, they'd have been coming after that money. You know what I'm saying? For the bill.
Yes, let's make that clear. Viewers, your debt does not die when you die.
No, it does not.
If you pass away and you still have payments that have to be paid on your car or your mortgage or taxes, that does not go with you to the grave. That debt still has to be taken care of. So if there is money left after you pay your final death expenses or whoever pays it, they do want their money. Either they want possession of the vehicles, the home, anything that hasn't been paid off. Yeah, that doesn't die. It is still there. It has to be paid. Someone has to take it.
Except for federal student loans. Provide the proof of death certificate and that will go away.
Oh, that will go away. That's the only time that go away.
That's the only time get rid of it.
Federal student loans, yes.
That right, man, and then the loans don't go away to only when you die. That's it. That's crazy, ain't it? That's crazy, ain't it?
You have to literally expire to get rid of your debt, your student loan.
He probably walk up to your cab coughing when you dead, like, you still got student. But I'm just saying. But also that you love the things that you provide, the services that you provide. can you talk about amps? Because we were the beneficiary of this. And so as you're talking, I'm just going to share some stuff real quick. You know, I'm good with the technology now, so, you know, I'm just going to go on there. But can you talk more about Amps Radio and the things that you're doing with them?
Yeah, so Amps. How Amps came about was 2006. I started the business, and then 2007, I was working with the health coach, and he was saying that I should, you know, advertise with Amps Magazine. So I, you know, hadn't heard of them before, so I did some advertisement with them and did, like, you know, an article about my business in the magazine, and that ended up prompting from that. Amps was like, "Hey, would you like to be, you know, a part of our team to contribute, you know, to be a writer on a regular basis?" And so I was honored because I was like, "Oh wow, okay." It was my article was that good, and so I started writing more frequent for the magazine, and then I ended up also becoming, you know, one of their editors as well. So I will also edit the magazine. I also got involved with Amps Radio and Amps TV as well. So I have been rocking with them since 2007, and they were in Indy originally for some years when I first started, and then they moved headquarters to Florida, but they do come here frequently for Indiana Black Expo, Summer Celebration, and for Circle City Classic. So this past summer they were here, and we had a booth set up, and I ended up seeing Candace while we were out there, and I was like, "Hey, come by the booth so we can interview you, and talk about what you're doing." And so she was able to stop by, and so I'm glad that she was able to stop by because I was wanting to, you know, get her connected and get the podcast connected with the magazine for quite some time. So that actually opened up the opportunity to be like, "Hey, let's get the podcast on on our platform." So here we are today.
Thank you for sharing that. So I'll just share a little bit about how it went. Amaru knows that I'm a very shy person. So Jackie did see me. I had a booth at the Indiana Black Expo for my therapy agency, actually. And she was so welcoming. She's like, "Hey, you know, before the weekend is out, you know, why don't you stop by and stop at our booth?" And I was like, "Okay." So I was busy on Friday. I was busy on Saturday. But on Sunday, I said, "Let me go over here to this booth." And she's like, "Come on." Jackie introduced me to everyone. And the guy was like, the owner of the magazine was like, "Hey," and the man was like, "Hey, let me interview you." I was sitting on the spot. He said, "Yeah, you got to be ready." And I'm like, "Oh, gosh." So I was like, "Okay." So he interviewed me. And then right after, he asked me a little bit about everything. He said, "Oh, you got a podcast?" He's like, "I should have been met you." He was like, "I'm going to put you on my station." And I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah." So I am excited about it. I'm excited that Jackie made that connection for me. It was well deserved and well overdue. So thank you again, Jackie. And I am
welcome
as well.
And so you can access it through, as you said, I'm on the website. I can drop the link in the comments below. But that's dope. I don't like why they keep going back to the white woman. So we're going to keep pushing back to the white woman. Like, what y'all doing? Like, y'all trying to be slick? No, I'm just playing. But we the opportunity. See, you see what I'm saying? I ain't even did that. It's just putting back stuff. So we're appreciative of the opportunity because, again, like, this has been something she's been wanting to do for a long time. And so we're actually getting more opportunities because of this, right? And so just, you know, it just says, you know, if you stick to your content, stick to your guns, stick to your branding, that opportunities like this will present itself. And so we are very appreciative of this opportunity. So thank you so much. Thank you. And like we are streaming right now on the under the feature artist podcast tab. If you go to the Amps Radio website, you can directly listen to our podcast on here. And so that's cool. Like, I never even thought it would get to this point, right? I thought, you know,
I did. I had the vision for it.
No, but I'm like, I knew it was, you know, pop, but I'm like, I didn't think it would be this soon. Like, I'm like, 4-5 years, you know, somebody from BT a call or something like that. But this is pretty dope, you know. And so, again, dope. This is dope. So thank you. That's cool. I got one more question. I got a question for you too. Because we talk about life success and some of the things you have going on with that. What are some of the other entities or industries that you are in under life success that you provide, some services you provide besides apps, obviously? And because I remember, just to backtrack, I remember when you were doing some of these things, you were doing something with the cell phones and then I remember my memory is very well. Well, because you were doing a whole lot, and I remember when you were making that transition, I was just interested. Remember, I was working at the post office. I got to check. So I was like, man, I'm straight. You know what I'm saying? I'm straight up here. But it was curious because I'm like, because for someone to make that pivot from corporate America, right, it had to be a reason, right? And so when you're making those decisions, especially you're young, you didn't have any kids at the time, right? So, we was 20, 24, 25. So, trying to be responsible. But when you make decisions like that, they can be life altering. And so can you talk about some of the other industries that you have under life success?
Yeah. So you want to pull up that one flyer with life success on it?
So this one, because you got a whole bunch of them.
Not that one. We'll get to that one. Keep going.
That's Legal Shield. This one
right here. Yes. So insurance. So I am licensed in 14 states to do business. What you say?
Is Wisconsin one of them?
Yes, Wisconsin is one of them.
Right on, sister. Right on.
I want to say congratulations to that, because I have taken the insurance test for life and health and property and casualty, and it is very difficult. You have to you have to study, and you have to really know the information. So good job.
Yes, thank you. So I'm licensed in 14 states now, and thank God I did take the test. I took a course. I took an in-class course, and thankfully I passed it on the first try. And then so I do have some contracts with some companies and some brokers to provide solutions for insurance. So I do have life, health, cancer insurance, critical illness, which is more like heart attacks and things like that. Dental, vision, accident, disability, and some other things. But I mainly work with business owners along with that aspect to make sure that they have some benefit solutions for their businesses. But I also work with individuals as well. It's just that businesses are my primary client. Yes, but I can work with individuals as well. So that's with the insurance. I do work with some brokers that also offer, home and auto insurance as well that I partner with, and those that are getting older, the seniors that need their Medicare, or if you need Medicaid, I do have contacts to get them to that area. I don't do Medicaid and I don't do Medicare, but I do have resources for that. And then the financial, yes.
So you mentioned insurance. So would you be your rate? Well, I'm just throwing it out because I want to know, because I'm gonna just ask. So like for mine, we got, what do we have? We have state code. I forget, we switched it, but so if I went through you for the insurance, how is your rate as far as comps go, right? Versus the typical State Farm, typical Progressive, typical Prudential. Because I know you're an intermediary for that. So would the rate be better, or it would just be checks and balances, which you just have to check to see, as far as the rate versus just going straight directly to the insurance company?
Now, are we talking about health insurance, or are we talking about the other insurance?
Just insurance, health insurance, car insurance, home insurance, any insurance.
Well, so with the health insurance, for the health insurance, what I do is I look for what's going to be best for you. So I have contracts with different carriers. So it's going to be best what's based on your needs and your family needs when that comes to play. So I don't have with the health insurance, I don't have a set company that I say is better or not. Is going to be based on what you're needing, because it's going to be different from everybody's situation. Now, when it comes to the other type of insurance, like the supplemental, things like that, there is a carrier that I do use as the preferred one, because in my opinion, I believe they are the best.
Who are they? Let's talk about them.
Well, I would say, like, one of the carriers is, everybody knows it is Aflac insurance. So, they're the number one in what they do in supplemental insurance. So, but when it comes to life insurance, it's still across the board. So I don't stick, I look to see if we can get you covered. If I can't, then I have other brokers that I work with to kind of still get you what you need. So it's going to be based on like what's best for that person. And then
because my wife is going to watch this, and she always like to be lean. And so she's going to be like, what does she talk about? She probably gonna be hassling me to call you to see what she's a hustler. So she's gonna be hustling because she fixes stuff, and so that's what she does. So that's why I asked, because she's gonna be like, "Hey, Nookie, how you doing? What about the rates?" So she's gonna be on you like that. So that's why I asked.
Okay. And then there's the financial literacy and education. So in 2021, so I'm big on financial literacy and education. Education is key. Even if you do not get any type of policy from me, as long as I'm educating you, that is what is important to me, because knowledge is power. And as you see on there, we're destroyed due to the lack of knowledge. So my whole goal is, let me educate you, and then you can make a decision, but at least I educated you. Whether you make a decision or not to move forward with me, that's what's more important. And so in 2021, I ended up coming across a group called Legends Together, and they were on the same path that I was on in regards to financial literacy. And so I ended up partnering with them. So I think there's a flyer with, not that one, it's another one, this one right here. There's 11 of us. I'm a part of the corporate staff with Legends Together. And we have a whole community, over 1,100 people, where we are focused on financial literacy, education, bringing tools, resources to people, which includes the legal shield part, learning how to trade. We have a whole education platform on learning how to trade, Forex, crypto, all of that. And so this is our Legends Together family.
How do you get access to? So you provide these trainings. Are these free, or do they pay for these trainings? Because I know
there is a fee.
They are charging for this thing, for these sessions.
Yeah, so we do charge a fee for the education part. Because we have people who are 6-figure, 7-figure earners, and they're providing their education and their knowledge, and they're actually giving you signals that you can actually take into your account, and you can place those trades and make money. So there's opportunity for money, but then you also have the education piece so that you can learn the skill for yourself. So we actually provide the whole university where you can learn the skill for yourself. We have live trading sessions. And then we have where you can learn on your own in the back office on your own time to actually learn the skill, so that you can eventually be on your own and you can just go into the market and trade. So that's our community. But we also have like the mindset. We talk about mindset, and we talk about, so you don't have to pay the fee to be. Just that we have our community inside of Discord, so you do not have to pay a fee to be inside of Discord. We have people who are not paying fees that are just in our Discord because it's our environment. Our environment is full of people that are positive, have integrity. So if you want to be in an environment of like-minded people, you can just jump in our Discord and just be a part of our, community. And we have some people in there that are just there for that environment. We have a spiritual area in there. People, they need prayer, things like that. We have a fitness category in there as well. So if you need some exercises or some things to do or some fitness things, we have that as well within our community. There is no cost to just be in there and see those things. We also periodically drop some free trade ideas. So where you can take the trade and you don't have to have a membership just to periodically get that random trade thrown out to you. And within that, we have the legal shield part as well, because we want to make sure that if you're producing wealth and you're having wealth, that you want to make sure you also are protecting yourself as well.
I have a question for you. So if they join the group, I know that you said there's a lot of information that you guys give out. Oftentimes people give out information. Is this something that they're actually willing to show people how to apply it? Because like when people are working with cryptocurrency or investing or trading, that can be intimidating for some people who don't know the skill. So reading the information and seeing someone else read it, but are they actually showing you how to trade? Are you learning? Because some people learn hands-on. They're more of a visual learner.
Oh, yes, we have a study hall. So those that actually pay for the membership, we actually have a study hall where you're on a Zoom, you're pulling your screen up, and we're walking step by step. If you got questions, you can ask your questions. It's a real warm and welcoming environment. So our motto is that everybody wins. We want to make sure everybody is winning. And so we have, that's our culture, our environment. And like I said, we have people in there that are not members, that they just like our environment. So they're just present for whatever conversation may be there. And they can just join into our Discord link and just be a part of a good community.
That's what's up. That's what's
All
up.
right. As we wrap up, do you have any final questions for her, Eugene? Do you have do you have any? I know. We're gonna do the word of
I
the
do
day.
want to mention it was the one flyer that he had posted up.
This one.
So this one, with the Legal Shield, we're also partnered with Mr. Darnell Self, who's a multi-millionaire, and Mr. Mike Humes as well. He's made over $9 million, and he's just making a lot of money, and he's a part of our community. And we also provide training if you have a business or some ideas on the business and you just want to be able to connect. You can connect in our community, and we do build like a boss course that is free. And then you get to interact with millionaires that are making a lot of money to tell you like what you should be doing, goal setting, your game plan, like what are your goals. And so it doesn't have to be because of Legal Shield, or it doesn't have to be because of your trading. It's just because you have a business and you want to get that business to the next level. And so we have that class on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and those are the times that are posted. So if anybody is interested, I think you got me tagged. You can send me a DM if you want to know more information about any of the information that we went over today. And I want to mention we do have a will and estate planning free class on Thursday. Yes. I think you have that as well. That you can post if you want information on that webinar, free webinar that we're giving to go in. And there's going to be 2 attorneys that's going to educate on the importance of a will. So I'm not the expert. The attorneys are the expert. I provide the resources for you to be able to, have access to it. But this Thursday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time is a free will and estate planning class. If you want more information, again, you can send me a message and I'll get you the link, and you just hop on for free and listen in.
That's good information. We need to make sure we post that on our page, because I know
I posted it at the beginning of the link is in the comments. It's the first link in the comments, so I got it in there. So
okay, all right.
I'm on it. I'm on it, fam. I'm on it. There it is, right there.
Okay.
We also, before we go, I thank you again, because I know it's just such last minute. I've been trying to get you on. We know you busy. We are busy. You out there hustling in these streets. At the Black Expo, you've been doing Black Expo since I can remember, And so I just wanted to give you the flowers because you've been doing this a long time, doing dope things. And so it will transition as we transition to our word of the day. You embody this, right? And so our word of the day, for people who don't know, it is hope. And I'll give the Swahili term the pronunciation matumaini. I don't think I'm pronouncing it correctly. I'm just going with that.
Do your best. Do your best.
And it's a feeling of expectation and desire for a certain thing to happen. And so, knowing you as for as long as I did, you have always embodied that. Being hopeful. We came from the same, same area basically. Same. Actually, you was just a street over. And so, brothers. I know your sister, your mom, all you guys. And so, to see where you at today is pretty cool. Because now we're adults and we got these little children running around. You know what I'm saying? So put that hope into them. And so I like to thank you for being here. You got any closing remarks?
I would just say make sure you have things in place. That is just so important to make sure you have your financial things in place. Make sure you have your insurance, your protection in place, just in case. I mean, things are going to happen. That will happen whether we like it or not. And so just make sure you have those things in place so that your family or your loved ones are not left trying to fight through court and deal with the government. Because if you don't have a will in place, the government has one for you.
You have any closing remarks, Candace?
I just want to thank our viewers for coming on tonight and every time we have our podcast. And thank you for continuing to support us. We look forward to seeing you guys at the community event, the Give Back, that is on September the 9th. Please make sure that you take a look at our flyers. Our Cash App information is on there. The money always goes towards a good cause. We will be providing food, haircuts, music, cleaning up the park, and also making sure that we're giving out gift cards and school supplies and backpacks to the kids. So,
and
so
we
come check us out.
We are a fourth of the way there. We already at 600, so we're gonna be begging. I'm just beyond. I'll be begging. I'll be in your inbox. I'll be all up on you, sweating you like a bad suit, because this is some of the things that we should be doing, right? Complain a lot about revolutionary things, right? We complain about things not being done right. And so when things are being put together and put into motion with other people, right, you want to support it. And so this is going to be a pretty cool event this year, right? Because we purposely pushed it back because of conflicting schedules and life getting in the way. But we wanted to make sure we still had this event because we love our area. We are from that area. We are invested in that area, obviously. And we want to make sure that people know that we care about them. We want to make sure that the city knows that we care, because a lot of times what happens when you have these type of situations, they think that, oh, you moved away, you guys don't care. No, we do care. We are invested. And so I should have had the flyer up, so my apologies, but it's September 9th from 10 to 2, right? We want to be a little, strategic with our time, because now a little early for some of us. People just started pulling up to 10:30 last year, so we'll push it back to 10. I don't want to be CP time, but but we would love for you to come if you're able to, because we obviously know your schedule's a little hectic. But just come out and support. If not, if you can't support, send it via Cash App, right? It could be $20, $30, whatever. But all that helps, because the end goal is we want to make sure we want to bulldoze the playground and put some new playground equipment on there. And so we getting donations from all over. So this is the first week. And so again, we'll be aggressive. We thank you guys for supporting us. This is what we're trying to do. Any other thoughts and concerns? With that, good night.
Good night, everyone. See you in 2 weeks.
Good night.